Welcome, Internet Capitalists, to episode 33 of The Big Show. I'm here today in Bloomington, Indiana. Ben is in the financial capital of the New South, Charlotte, North Carolina. And we're doing a special episode today on the turbulence in the market. Benjo, how are you doing today?
Pretty decent. Overall, didn't lose all my money because I did not have it all in meme coins. So condolences to all of the meme boys who are down 70, 80, 90%, especially against Bitcoin. I don't know if you've seen the WIF Bitcoin chart, but that's pretty rough. You can take a look at it.
No,
Overall,
I've not.
pretty decent though. We had that large capitulation on basically all alts this past week, which we haven't gotten to talk about yet.
Yep.
We were actually together when this happened, so I just want to get your initial thoughts. And for context for everyone, ETH was trading at about 3,600 earlier last week, and then it wicked all the way down to 2,100 from probably about 3,000 on the night it happened. So
Yep.
pretty insane market moves. What are your thoughts on what we saw?
So, yeah, we were together, and I was sitting at the computer after we had had a glass of wine, and it was just craziness. Somewhat thankful that I was partially out of that market and I got some decent buys on Arrow, which I've now closed out again. But for me, it was a eye opener about, in spite of seemingly everything positive, how for almost no discernible reason it all turns to shit in an instant.
Well, this is the type of thing. Whenever you look back on it, though, the things that capitulated are memes and a lot of altcoins. And were there any potential altcoin cycle tops, or at least local tops? Well, the president did launch a coin, and it went to nearly $80 billion fully diluted valuation.
Wait,
Within
80 billion?
yeah,
That's with the
80.
high. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a top 10 crypto asset briefly. Then the president's wife, the first lady, launched the coin. So we were frothy. And it's funny because Bitcoin really didn't move that much. It's down 12% from its high of about 107,000, I believe, so
Mm-hmm.
108,000. And it's currently sitting at about 96,000. So Bitcoin really hasn't moved that much. It's squarely in the middle of the range that it was in. But altcoins just completely capitulated. Some of the more quality ones are just more still within their ranges, but down. And then the meme coins absolutely obliterated. So we're going to take
Mm-hmm.
a look at some charts today and just how we feel about the market in general, if that's good with you. But I can pull up the Bitcoin
Absolutely.
chart
Pull
here,
them
and
up.
I think
We
it's
haven't
good
done
to
this in a
start
long
there.
time. So this is good. This
Yeah.
is the whole episode is going to be focused on the charts. A little bit shorter, but a little bit more in depth on the charting stuff.
Okay. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So these are my lines for Bitcoin right here. Very, very
Okay.
simplistic. But as you can see, I have a buy zone, little rectangle right there. And this is what I'm looking at.
The
So we've
purple
been
rectangle? Oh, yeah. This says
Yeah.
buy zone.
So yeah. So since November, whenever we got Trump elected, we got the Trump pump. So we traded all the way up from around the all-time highs at the time, which was 70,000, all the way straight up to about $98,000 per Bitcoin. Tried to break 100K. Eventually, did do it. Since then, we've been trading in this range of the weekly highest close we got was 104,000 Bitcoin, and the lowest weekly close was about 93,000. So we've been trading in that range for a while. And since then, Trump has taken office. We have gotten insane altcoin rallies. We had a whole market cycle for a new crypto sector called crypto AI. And it
Yep.
feels like we have gone through what could be a complete crypto cycle, even though it was very fast. So now everyone's wondering, we've traded down, alts have capitulated. Is this the cycle top? Is Bitcoin done? Are alts done? And I think the answer is not straightforward. I think it's different from previous cycles. And we've mentioned this before, where not everything's just going to go straight up and to the right anymore. Your asset selection actually matters. But the thing is, Bitcoin is the biggest crypto asset. It's the center of every trade you're going to make. So before you want to move back into alts or even move back into Bitcoin for its next like higher, if you think it's not the cycle close, you want to understand where Bitcoin is going. So what we're looking at here is Bitcoin sitting at about $95,800 following that huge alt liquidation, and Bitcoin's down, but not terribly so. I currently think we're going to get a dip out of this range for a variety of reasons. One would be because of the macro uncertainty and just what's going on in the government. So Trump's implementing tariffs. There's a lot of uncertainty about monetary policy from the Federal Reserve because we're seeing pretty balanced economic conditions, and they haven't gone full steam ahead on lowering interest rates or changed their policy on quantitative tightening or easing. So while we're in that kind of uncertainty zone, we had these catalysts. So this was the case, but then we got the news about a potential strategic Bitcoin reserve. We got news about a crypto task force. We got all kinds of crazy news, and Bitcoin still could not break out. So this biases me to the downside in the near term. And I think we retest the lows here and dip into the zone, um, probably causing a lot of people to think the cycle is over. And in my opinion, this is where I'm going to be buying. This is not financial advice, but in the zone, I believe we're going to get a deviation out of the range. And that's where you're really going to want to start looking at Bitcoin purchases and then altcoins after if you think the cycle is not over. So, any reflections on that so far before I continue?
Yeah. So my take on it all is that there was a lot of hype about the strategic Bitcoin reserve with Loomis, about the digital asset committee with the SEC chair and the Treasury. But the fact of the matter is, those are still government type things, and government type things take time. It's not like Loomis is just going to say, "Okay, let's start buying tomorrow," or the digital asset committee is going to come up with these rules. I personally thought that the list of 10 priorities that they mentioned about the digital asset working group were right on, although some of them probably were not what people wanted to hear. They talked about determining if particular tokens were securities or not in a normal fashion, which in the long term is good. In the short term, that's clearly not no regulation. So I can see where the hesitancy is coming from, both in not immediate and what I'll call maybe more of an administrative or grown up response to what this committee is going to do, which is good in the long term.
Yeah, in terms of market action, I actually think that like these regulatory announcements were simply people were looking at them for a reason for the market to go higher, but I really don't
Yes.
think the market was dependent on that at all. I think these were actually priced in with the move up following the election because everyone knew these things were on the table and maybe their likelihood fluctuated. So whenever Trump was elected, they'd mentioned Bitcoin before, people were pricing in a 50% chance of a strategic reserve. Then they increase discussions. It moves up to 20% likelihood
Yeah.
from 50, so it goes to 70%.
Yeah.
And then we price that in and get a little bit of a pump. But I think this is just all reactionary after we had this move up, and we are just trading in this zone until something fundamental changes. And there's something that fundamentally is going to change is macro. It's global liquidity, it's interest rates, and it's ending quantitative tightening or starting quantitative easing from the Fed. And this really depends on what the economy does. So all eyes right now, unfortunately, should be on macro. And I'm not a macro expert, but I'm going to start, and I have started, trying to be informed in that space and listening to people who know what they're talking about because I think that is the single biggest driver. And I think you can get the timing wrong and still make some money on this cycle because I don't think it's over, especially for Bitcoin. I still think that we have a ways to go. This was just the initial accumulation period after getting the Trump repricing and getting this institutional acceptance, and that now we're just waiting for macro. But in the meantime, I think we've really exhausted our catalysts, and because of that, we're going to get some. They call it fuckery, so we're going to get some fuckery in the market, and we're going to try to shake some people out. And a lot of the people who are down bad on alts, down bad on basically anything else they were doing on chain besides Bitcoin, are going to think the cycle is over when really it's not. So I think we're going to get the deviation into the zone, see Bitcoin in the mid to high 80s, and then depending on macro, we're going to see another like higher, and that is my base case. So I don't know if you have any unique views there, and also the thing you're saying here is these are Fibonacci levels, so this is just a Fibonacci retrace. So you take basically its own range. It's kind of arbitrary here. I picked about right here on the daily chart. It makes more sense, but on the weekly it fits as well. And that would put the low here around 83,000. I don't think we get that, but as soon as we break that 92,000 level, 93,000, which is the lowest weekly close, we could see a significant capitulation on Bitcoin, which I don't think is the start of a bear market, but rather just a move on the part of institutions and big players to sell off their coins and get some capitulation from other players so that they can reaccumulate before we continue higher. And that's essentially my base case for Bitcoin, but too long didn't read. You have to watch macro, and that's just where we are in the market.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only macro, and I generally agree with all of that. I think one thing I did just want to point out is even with all this talk, if it goes to 83,000, I think the year over year return of Bitcoin is still approaching 100%,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Bitcoin's
which is
you want to hold Bitcoin. You
crazy.
denominate in Bitcoin, saving Bitcoin. To be
Yeah,
clear, I believe Bitcoin is going to parity with gold's market cap, which puts it near $1 million, I believe, per
yeah,
Bitcoin within the next 10, 15
yeah.
years. I think that's basically granted just based on the way the monetary system is shaking out. But in the near term, you're going to get pullbacks. But I still think that for now, we're at a very solid place for Bitcoin. And there's not really a reason to panic unless there's a black swan event, which there could always be. But I still feel pretty good. And I think there's a lot of depression on crypto Twitter, mostly because people had all their money in alts. Like if you
Yes,
look at, let's take a look at some altcoin. Let's actually
yes. I
do
was going
ETH
to ask you to
first.
do that.
Let's
Okay.
do ETH first. So let's okay. See, so you have
Whoa,
okay. This is you have my lines here. So there's a lot
I
going
got your
on.
lines. Yep.
So zooming out. So on the high time frames, you see ETH in this big descending triangle. So it's basically being compressed over time. Then those are these two outside lines,
Yep.
and we're still well within that zone. So like overall, it hasn't broken super high time frame structure. And actually, the bottom of that zone is about $2,000, which
So Ben,
unfortunately,
can I
yeah, I
stop
think
you
we
real
could
quick?
receive. Yeah, ask
This
anything.
structure though is or long-term time frame bullish. This descending triangle is bullish structure.
It's very. I'm still very
Okay.
bullish ETH. And
Okay.
okay, before we get back into the chart, here's my main thesis. Okay, so Bitcoin is getting institutional adoption. It's basically been accepted as a hard money asset store of value by all the people that matter in the world now, BlackRock, and now it's just a matter of the rest of the world catching up and their assets being allocated there, assets being allocated away from gold, bonds, other things into this new 21st century reserve asset, which is Bitcoin. So I think the writing's
Mm-hmm.
on the wall. It is up only over long enough time periods and it stabilizes at some point in the future. That's my base case. Two
Okay.
would be Ethereum. I think that fundamentally, and this has not changed since the beginning, despite its price action, despite the negativity, despite all the bros on Twitter saying that the tech is worse, no one cares about all this. I think Ethereum is the only viable platform for large scale institutions to tokenize assets and trade them and conduct financial transactions on a blockchain in a way that can make the financial system better and in the way that and it's the only platform that is credibly neutral enough to do that. And I think that's Ethereum, and it has the tailwinds with BlackRock. You've heard Larry Fink and others talk about it. This is their chosen platform for doing that type of thing, and I don't think that goes away. I think that is a undeniable competitive advantage. And there's some Bitcoin people, there's some skeptics who don't believe in this vision at all, but I really do believe in this vision of tokenization of the financial system, essentially. And I still
Mm-hmm.
think that happens on Ethereum. It's the only viable candidate, in my opinion.
Okay.
So over the long term, that's where it fits in. And then three is there's these crypto games, right? We get these narratives. We had the meme coin cycle here. We had the AI narrative, which was both Solana and Base. You get like it's a playground for crypto people to play in. And this cycle, it was all Solana. That's why it traded all the way back to 200. It rose from the ashes from $8 all the way back up to 270 or whatever it hit. And we got the meme coin super cycle. That's where all the activity was. I
Mm-hmm.
think that that asset changes over time. And I don't think Solana dominates that conversation anymore. I think that's the third little niche of crypto besides the application coins that you can invest in or trade. And Solana has played out. And I think because the meme coin super cycle is over and that's what it's known for, Solana is not going to fare as well against Bitcoin and other assets as it has previously. And I think we get a new crypto L1 to take its place. And my bet for that is on Hyperliquid. And I've mentioned that before. And I think it does a similar thing as Solana. And that's where the next round of on chain crypto degen activities, innovation, all of that is going to be had. So those are my overall theses. Before I dive
Okay.
back into the chart, do you have any differences? Do you agree? Like, what are your thoughts?
Um, that was a lot. I, I, this may be controversial. I am I've been involved in some of the AI stuff a lot, and I struggle to see at this moment how AI just grafted on the crypto is going to be a gigantic game changer. because the craziness, Ben, is that in the period of a month, it's been commoditized. There are, this, the Twitter bots and all that stuff, that was sort of stupid anyway. And those guys, those like virtuals is getting crushed, I believe now. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's way down. The next stage, which I've actually used, are bots that actually make trades based on LLMs analyzing the market. And those are great. And they seem to be coming along, and they're in various stages of completion, but those literally in like a month's time have become commoditized. So they're one's doing this, another's doing that, but there's nothing that I can see standing out yet. And I don't know what the next step is of AI except to make the user interface easier. And I think you said, though, that may not be enough to bring retail on board using AI to make the interface easier. So I've yet to see what the killer app is in AI that's going to make a token zoom to 1 billion and stay there because of utility of the AI as opposed to the words AI.
Yeah, this is a little bit departed from what I was talking about on long time frames. Like any particular sector in crypto can get. I don't know what the coins are going to do. You should trade. You can trade them and make money, and in terms of excess returns over Bitcoin or ETH for periods. But I have zero confidence that any coins over the long term are going to hold value against Bitcoin and ETH, which I think is going to win the financial infrastructure game. In terms of AI specifically, I agree with you. I remember people saying that AI agent frameworks in crypto were like the new L1s. That was the dumbest shit I ever heard. Like people just say anything whenever the coins are going up. And I agree. I don't think there's any retail demand whatsoever for crypto tools that you can talk to them and then it uses a blockchain for you. I just think there's no demand. So on any sector, there's pros, cons, and at times they outperform and you need no one to get in and out. But at the highest level, I don't think that's a category where you could invest or have high confidence in that it's going to have staying power. So I agree there.
Okay, let's get back to ETH because I want to hear your take on this because kind of like you, I have a little bit of cash here, some dry powder, so to speak, and I want to hear what your take is on this.
Yes. Okay. So I set the frame. We have the big descending triangle on the highest time frame, and we're still well within that zone. We've tested it a few times, tried to break out, got rejected hard, and have remained in it for quite a while. And if you zoom in, this trend line, the smaller one, is basically the trend line for this bull cycle. So the cycle actually started early. This is the ETF candle that we had back in early February and March of last year. And we actually started the bull market while we still thought we were in a bear, because obviously you can't know at that point if that's a scam pump or whatever, but that's where it starts. And since then, we've been following this trend line. We've bounced off it back here, and this creates a trend, and we're basically sitting on it right now. So there's basically one of two things that happens, is that either you believe that ETH is going to hold this trend line, and I think this is very dependent on what Bitcoin does. So if Bitcoin trades, this is against USD, if Bitcoin trades down, which I believe, that's my thesis, down back into the 80s, I have a very hard time believing that we're going to hold the cycle trend line. So we're going to get a deviation below the cycle trend line. And
which is what, man?
It's right here. So this is the
I know, but what level is that right now?
That's where we are. It's literally 2,500 and we're at 2,585. So we're about at it, and we've dipped below it. And this is why a lot of the people were saying that that's a bottom on ETH, but it really just depends on Bitcoin again. And I think the ETH Bitcoin ratio has gotten slaughtered enough so that we really could bounce at any time. But even if the ratio stays the same, Bitcoin trades down another 5-10%, ETH's back down in that zone. And then what I have here is the Fibonacci levels again. We have a cleaner range here on the weekly. So top of the range, bottom of the range right here. We had this deviation outside of it and had the big candle back inside of the range, and we've been trading in it. We just broke out of the range here, and now the next level is really, really nice right down here again, back at about like 2,200. So this entire, and it's right below the cycle trend line. So based on my thesis for Bitcoin and based on what you're saying from the ETH chart, a really strong buy zone, if you believe that ETH is not completely dead, which I do not, is basically right here. Whenever we get this deviation down into the trend line, and potentially we could trade all the way back down to to the larger descending triangle line,
Yep.
back down to about 2,000. So anything in here is where I'm comfortable buying. And then on the higher time frame, again, you should see ETH well above all-time highs, in my opinion, if the cycle continues. And that's basically the bet you're making. But from a TA perspective, I think it's like a very clear level where we're sitting right now.
Yep.
And it's either we bounce here, and that's dependent on Bitcoin, or Bitcoin capitulates, and you get an opportunity to buy probably around 2,200, around 2,000, perhaps even. So that's my thesis for ETH, and that's what I'm looking at on the charts. So any thoughts on this?
Didn't you call buys in those areas God level purchases, or what was your exact term?
God tier purchases. I think they
God
are.
tier.
If you believe, yeah, if you believe in ETH, I think this is God tier purchase zone for ETH. I think you could see, if you get in at 2,200, I think you could see a 3x, which is, I mean, people will make fun of you because that's nothing compared to some coins, but a 3x on ETH for this cycle. If we get that and Bitcoin continues high into the towards the 120s and beyond to 150, I think
Yep.
that will be a clean 3x for ETH if the thesis plays out. If we break out of this large descending triangle after retesting the bottom zone here. And that's I'm just saying, this is not financial advice. I don't know what's going to happen, but if you were to trade it, and that's how I would do it, and that's what I'm looking at right now. So I do think we get this capitulation, long story short, and you can even shorten this buy zone to anywhere down here if you really think Bitcoin capitulates. But anywhere in here, I'd be comfortable buying. You're giving up 5 to 8% or something like that, which is not huge if you're counting on the multiples that you see with crypto assets.
Gotcha. Like that. That's a very clean chart, honestly.
It is. There's a lot of key levels, and it really depends on it. And I think the sentiment is terrible in crypto because everyone is invested in this crap AI coins, meme coins, and they're just down terribly. If all your money was in that, and you saw Bitcoin, you basically saw the Trump coin, everything going crazy. We saw this huge run up in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's around 107K. You're like, oh, we're on. Bitcoin's about to break out straight to 120 to 150. Allocated there. AI coins are on a little dip during this time. You buy them up there. Then they just got wrecked on that quick capitulation last week. And I think that people are going to be trapped into continuing that sentiment when really the overall picture for crypto hasn't been brighter almost ever. And we actually have a pretty good macro backdrop besides the immediate uncertainty over the next 6 months to a year. It's very positive overall. Yeah. So I just don't see a reason to think that this is the cycle top for Bitcoin and a select set of assets, at least, including ETH, in my opinion.
Gotcha. All right. I agree with, I think that makes sense, and that's what I'm going to trade, both on Bitcoin and on ETH. I've pared my portfolio down just to Bitcoin, ETH, and HYPE and USDC now.
Yeah, I think those are good holds. Yeah. 100%.
So, did you have other altcoins you wanted to pull up here?
We can look at HYPE just because HYPE's interesting. Okay. So here's a very clean. HYPE is interesting because I like it for a lot of fundamental reasons. So because my aforementioned thesis, where I think it takes the place of Solana in terms of on-chain crypto games, it has so many tailwinds from a fundamental level that I could get into. Oh, wow. Since last time I looked at this, we actually turned the weekly candle here red. So looks like I could be getting an entry here that I would like if we close the week like that. But what I'm seeing essentially is a couple things. So we had this kind of huge run up whenever the airdrop happened, and people were going crazy about HYPE. And then we traded down for a while the broader market was concerned with AI, was concerned with meme coins, etc. And then only recently have we bottomed. And if you go to the daily chart here, it might be easier to see. We've been having a pretty clean range of about 20 to, we broke out, traded back in recently, traded up to about $28, but have really just been in this $25 to $20 range. And I think if we get the Bitcoin move down, and again, that's painting my whole thesis for all these other coins. Remember, like, you have to pay attention to Bitcoin and macro right now. You just have to. It's not go all out season, buy all the coins, and they'll go out. That's not happening anymore. We're past that part of the market cycle. And I think that similar thing's going to happen. We have this very clean range. Feel very comfy in here. We wanted the breakout whenever Bitcoin was over 100K. It looks like we were going to break out. And at that point, I was very bullish on HYPE in the immediate term. I thought it could double almost immediately if Bitcoin continued. I thought that's a decent thesis, but Bitcoin looked to be rejected, uncertainty in the macro. So I think what we see is a retest of this zone. And I think we actually might see a retest of a bit lower around $18 for a few reasons. It's because of that kind of bear market fake out move that I think is going to psyop a lot of people into thinking it's over and they're going to capitulate. So you might get a nice wick down on a weekly chart where you can size into this trade if you like the coin, like the project. And then if you look at the weekly chart, you'll see something called a fair value gap here, and Steven talks about it a lot. So basically, a fair value gap is that, and this is the positive one, the 3 green candle fair value gap. You'll see candle here, candle here, candle here. These are the 3 we're looking at.
Yeah.
So you have one candle. The wick here is about 17, and then you get a massive candle here. We wicked up super high, but it closed all the way up here, and then the third candle was here. It wicked down to about 20. So it leaves a gap here. This is the so-called fair value gap. So you expect it to trade back into this range, and it has, but it hasn't closed it. So we have traded back into the range, which is typically enough in a bullish market structure and overall market. But I think that because of the Bitcoin overlay to this market, we actually will retest the lows of this fair value gap down to about, I don't know if we hit 17, but around $18. So I expect this to take new lows here and before we continue higher. And I think this will be one of the best value trades that you could get for a variety of reasons. And there's a bunch of fundamental catalysts again, but this is what I'm looking at for hype. And the entries that I'm looking for are really in here. And I might begin to size in around the lows here around 20, because overall I still think that's a good purchase. But again, a pretty clean chart. And stay tuned into Bitcoin. I think that this is a good coin to be watching right now.
So to be clear, hype has some I'll call them microscopic tailwinds as well, such as the launch of their L1, new liquidity flowing on because of new protocols in the chain and things like that, that are different than the Bitcoin stuff. So you can have additional tailwinds there. And the simple fact that hype seems like a good product and has some consumer trust built up in it, put it that way.
Yeah, it's one of the best crypto products I've used. It's probably the best on-chain crypto product I've used. The trading experience is amazing. The perp dex is amazing. And again, the catalyst, like you mentioned, the Hyperliquid, Hyper EVM is coming probably pretty soon. So you're going to have a chain. So what that does is increase demand for the hype asset, one, because you're going to be able to use it as collateral in lending markets. It's going to be like a base pair for ecosystem tokens, just like ETH is. That is huge in terms of a monetary premium for the token. So that's why I like it. 2 is that perp dex on-chain perp trading volume share is up only. It's gone from 30% up to 65%. Now everyone is using Hyperliquid, and perps are some of the best products in crypto to use, and people will continue using them. And it's just a great product. So, and on top of that, as the trading fees go up, they use those fees to buy back the hype token also. So that's only an additional tailwind. And then just at a price point, here it's at about 20 billion FDV. If you remembered in the bear market or early bull market, Celestia traded up to like a 28 billion FDV. And that's ridiculous. And then other comps like Sui were at 50, 60 billion FDV not too long ago. I just think that fundamentally, and last thing, sorry, there's a bunch of tailwinds. It's not a VC coin. There's no unlocks. Like 40% of the supply is already unlocked, which is a good amount. The rest is going to the community, to airdrops. And these people are highly aligned with the project. And the last time I saw something like this was with Solana people in the bear market. They were super aligned with the project, believed in it, strong community. And I know you're going on the community thing, but that is important when evaluating a coin's long-term staying power, that the people actually believe in the asset and people like the product, and people do. So because of all those things, I'm bullish on it fundamentally. And then the chart has some pretty clear levels. And I think if whenever quantitative tightening stops from a macro perspective and potential quantitative easing begins at some point in the next year, Hyperliquid will be one of the main beneficiaries as a new and strong altcoin within L1.
And just to be clear, Hyperliquid makes money. That's what they use to buy back the token. So
they make a lot of money. Yeah,
exactly. They make a lot of money.
So if you like that, that's great.
you know, and it seems like that's the age we're moving into. Well, show me the money kind of age, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, the one bad thing about money is that if you start applying TradFi multiples
Yeah.
to crypto fees, then everything looks wildly overvalued. So it's a double edged sword. As I don't know if you've watched the sitcom Silicon Valley, but there's this VC. He basically, I forget how he got rich, but he's not the smartest guy. His name's Russ Hanneman. If you've seen it, you guys know what I'm talking about. He basically says you never want to make profit because then or even revenue, because then you can be valued based on those figures. So if you don't make anything, then you can be valued at insane levels. But the point stands. I think that is important, and Hyperliquid stands to benefit. So bullish there. And before we kind of conclude here in a second, we can take a look at the WIF Bitcoin chart.
Dear Lord. Oh my. Wait, we've retraced to 2023?
Yeah, why can't I? It's not letting me scroll to change. Oh, wait, there we go. Yeah, so it's not great. WIF is, doesn't even look right, to be honest. WIF. Let's do the Binance pair.
This is the dog with hat thing, right?
Yeah, this is dog with hat thing. It was supposed to go on the Vegas Sphere, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And that never happened. And then meme coins just completely capitulated. Okay, this is the chart I was looking for.
Oh, wait.
Yeah,
wow.
this is the right one. That one was wrong. Some of the worst charts I've ever seen are being printed. So you have this. I just want to show everyone, before we stop, I want to show everyone the wreckage that people are facing. This is why the market sentiment is so bad. Like, people lost all their gains from this cycle, essentially, in the last week. So this is with Bitcoin. You have, let's just look at USD pairs. We can look at AI 16. Well, let's look at Cerebro. This is one of those top chatbot models that we saw. Oh my, yeah,
that can't be right.
Yeah, it is. It's the weekly. You can change it to daily to get a better picture, but
it's literally weekly down only.
Yeah, since it's been listed on Binance for its per pair here, so maybe there's a different spot. But yeah, Cerebro's pretty bad. What other? Let's look at AI 16Z.
Now, aren't these are AI coins, right?
These are all AI coins.
That's suboptimal.
We can look at, let's look at virtuals. Yeah, and this is why people feel so bad. They're down 70-80%. Not good.
Like, these are lower, like virtuals and
than when they were listed.
Than they were listed.
So yeah, exactly. You could have gotten the coins way cheaper than this back however long ago. This is not the full chart, but whenever it was listed on Binance, you just bought it, and this is a perp pair, but you would be down money. It's just very bad. And this is with Bitcoin still well within that range that we were talking about.
Right.
Yeah, Bitcoin's near 100,000, so it's at $95,000. We're at 70,000. A little bit, like, even some other alts are down way worse than that.
Well, clearly at the peak on January 1st, 2025, Bitcoin was near 100,000, and that's when the peak of this chart is at.
Yeah, that's a contributing factor, but it's also Bitcoin really hasn't moved much.
I'm just saying Bitcoin hasn't moved much, and this chart is down like 98%.
Yeah, we can look at, even Doge does not look great. I remember buying Doge, where's the election, as a bet on Donald Trump winning the election.
Yeah.
And I bought it like somewhere around here, and that was a good trade for me. I was trading perps here, and we've almost retraced it. I think I bought it at about 17 cents, and now we're back to 23, which is crazy considering we were almost at 50 cents.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah, and this is the other thing. I think meme coin, and just today we had Dave Portnoy rugging people on Twitter, He was like, yeah, I had this coin, it's made 70K, because he tweeted it and just rugged everyone immediately. He's just tweeting it. I was like, now they're trying to, Kanye's going on a rant on Twitter, and now people are telling him to launch a coin, and he's tweeting about launching a coin. So I think we're just completely cooked. The Solana meme coin, all that is done for now. Not saying another meme coin won't pump, but people are completely wrecked. Sentiment's in the toilet. We deserve this cleansing, I think.
Wow.
So, yeah, we'll see.
I like this.
Yeah. So I think if we get that Bitcoin retrace, we see a full capitulation here. I might even buy a little bit of Doge if we see it even lower here. But
wow.
Yeah. So we'll see. That's what we're looking at for the coming weeks. Let's check Bitcoin one more time before we go to see where we're sitting at. Still bleeding down, 95.7 right now. Looks like we're about to lose this zone. This is really key. If not, we probably retest 90s. I don't know if we break down right now. Maybe we bounce, but I think that's the most likely outcome right now.
So Ben, let me ask you a technical question for the folks out there. Will I know you use Coinbase. Will you go to Coinbase Advanced and put in like limit orders to buy below? Let's say it's Bitcoin. Buy below, for example, 88,000,
Yeah,
and let those go.
For Bitcoin, I will, because I don't want to keep my Bitcoin. I don't use it. Well, Bitcoin, it's interesting. You can't. There's no dexes on Bitcoin, so you have to buy it on a centralized exchange or over the counter or whatever. So, and I'm not going to keep it in a cold wallet. So I'm going to do that for Bitcoin. Yes, for I'm probably going to, like I said, we looked at ETH and Hype. I will probably scale into those. And I told you I'm going to go into 4 tranches. So the money I've allocated to each, I'm going to do DCA in with 4 buys. And usually that's not DCA to a lot of people, like a long-term investor would. But for me, that's DCA. Usually I just full shove. That's just how I trade. But
so to do that, you will not use Coinbase because of the fees, and you'll just go back into Arrow. You'll monitor the market, not constantly, but weekly,
the moves shouldn't be that abrupt, and if they are, I'll probably have some USDC ready to do it. But you can set limit orders on chain now, so you can just do that.
I actually had Odos with limit orders for Aerodrome. It was pretty slick. I ended up thankfully selling those and securing some profits for what I bought during the dump on February 1st. But the whole ecosystem's getting better for the high quality assets.
Yeah, I mean Uniswap just has limit orders too now, so I'll probably just use Uniswap. It depends where the liquidity is for the pair. So if I'm ETH, I'll probably just go to mainnet and either use Uniswap and set limit orders, or if an aggregator has limit orders, I'll probably do that. I believe Matcha might have limit orders. That's what I've been using, and I've been getting good quotes there. I've been happy with the experience. So maybe Matcha. For Hype, it's a bit more difficult because you have to use Hyperliquid. The token's not traded elsewhere. But again, it's the best trading product. You can set limit orders using the Hype UI. So I'll set limit orders for Hype as well in there. And the trading fees are very, very low.
Gotcha. All right, well, let's wrap this episode up. This is a nice bow on technical trading and where the markets are. So this has been great, Ben. I appreciate you taking the time to put these charts together. And, good luck to everybody out there.
Yep, stay safe. Not financial advice. We're just trying to trade these markets like everyone else. We don't have the money printer. We don't have the inside scoop. So wish you luck. Hope this could be somewhat helpful. But, yeah, good luck out there.
Dare to be great, baby. Let's go.
All right. See ya.